Hey, welcome to the Steele Method Podcast. My name is David Steele. For those who don't know me, I am the author of 2 books. One, a bestseller, The Care and Feeding of Highly Aggressive Salespeople. The other, Sneeze It, Don't Just Say It, Spray It. Very excited to bring you this podcast. It's an experimental podcast that we're going to be doing. This is season 1. We hope to do about 10 to 15 episodes. If it's well received, we'll create season 2. And this is geared towards helping gyms and studios really increase their bottom line and kind of combining sales and marketing together to create like a synergy between the two. And if you've worked with organizations that have 2 distinct functions, you probably know how hard it is to kind of bring those 2 together. I'm going to bring up and talk about some past experiences. I've had several successful exits from companies, and I was carried on to run some of the largest sales teams in the United States, and kind of bring some of that expertise in and some of the marketing that we did and how it all kind of worked together, as well as what we're doing here at Sneeze It. We're doing some phenomenal work as a digital marketing agency for the fitness industry and really learning what works and what doesn't work. We're going to plan on doing some interviews as well. There are some of our customers that are absolutely killing it and showing what they're doing and what you might be able to apply in your business, and kind of bring in some years of experience on some of the stuff that we've seen in the past as well. With that said, very excited to bring you episode number 1, which is what United Airlines is doing to make sure that every flight is fantastic. So recently I was on a plane on the way to Arkansas on one of those small regional jets, and I had the pleasure of sitting next to an older flight attendant that was actually with a pile of papers and a smiling new flight attendant in the front of the plane. And I quickly realized that this was a trading flight where the actual flight attendant was going to be trained. And the amount of papers that this person had as a checklist was astronomical. And as the new flight attendant was actually going through the rounds and actually talking, and things were happening and mistakes were actually happening, this person was able to, in a very confident and loving way, actually help this flight attendant prepare for what was going to be at the end of this flight, their actually, true graded trading flight. And so those things that were on the paper, obviously, like, what to say, the announcements, when to say it. The flight attendant that was being trained actually had a list on their phone and was actually reading a script like you actually see them do once in a while. I know now they have some with actually recording, and the CD goes in and they let it go, but I guess in the beginning they actually have to know what to say. But what's really interesting is some weird things start to happen. The first thing is that somebody in the front of the plane, the bulkhead where I was sitting, needed to be moved to the back of the plane for weight distribution. And how this person handled it was interesting, right? Because they were fumbling through this first time doing it. And there was a checklist for that. And I don't know if it was planned or not, but it was actually something that seemed to have to be done. The next thing that happened is somebody in the exit row did not speak English, and that's something that has to be done, and they had to handle that. And so I'm watching this checklist, and it actually brought me back to the time when I sold my company to a Fortune 150 organization, and was in charge of about 3,000 sales reps and had to train these reps on a regular basis. And so we had a standardized training methodology, and every week I would go out with other reps, and those other reps I would have a checklist of exactly what they're supposed to say, when they're supposed to say it, did they accomplish their goals, did they set their agenda ahead of time, did they know what was going to happen. And when I started doing this, I realized very quickly on is that over time, people sway or move from the point where they were started at, which was the perfect way to do it, to their own kind of flavor, which lost a lot of the nuances. This is important to make sure that this is done on a regular basis, right? Constantly reinforcing what makes your organization different with your sales team that's on the front line, to make sure that they have a checklist that they go after and make sure everything works really, really smoothly. Checklists work really well through a lot of industries. Restaurants use them. When you go to a 3-star restaurant, chances are there was a checklist that's being used, and this checklist is in fact the way that they train their waiters with very simple things that you would think, like, if somebody's having a conversation, don't walk up to them and give them their specials, right, and interrupt them. And There was a podcast I recently listened to about checklists in which, during certain surgeries, they actually bring extra blood into the room. And the reason for it is that they know that if something goes wrong in the surgery, that there's blood on hand. They don't have to ask for it. And that saved many people's lives, because the time that it takes to get the blood from, where they keep the blood in the hospital, wherever that is, to the OR could take 10, 15 minutes. At that point, that patient would have died. And now it only takes a few minutes, and there's a checklist for that. So I'm going to just, end this with saying this, is that if you have an organization that's built on sales, and we're going to cover like different rules that are used and ways to measure things, but if you don't have a checklist from everybody from the front desk on how they should be greeted when a new member comes in, to a sales team that this is what you're supposed to say and how you're supposed to say it, you're leaving things up to chance that probably are going to go wrong when they go wrong. You'd rather have things go wrong and let them figure it out on the exception, but the rule of thumb is that everybody in your entire organization should sell the exact same way with the exact same talking points. The customer is going to appreciate it, right? The prospective member is going to appreciate that what they've come in for is going to happen, and every time that this is going to work from time and time again. In subsequent episodes, we're actually going to talk about what should be on that checklist. Things like don't leave a person on hold for 30 minutes, and what people could do to increase their chances of converting a prospect into a member and upselling them to a higher level product. In addition, we'll talk about calculators and different ways to kind of adjust your forecasting to leave room for improvement, and what that improvement would do, and show your sales team how that small improvement of 1% or 2% in a closing rate can make a huge difference to the organization as a whole. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. You can go to thesteelmethod.com to find the podcast. We hope you listen and subscribe to future episodes. We're very excited. We'd love to hear comments. We'd love to know what you'd like to hear, and we're going to take questions in future podcasts as well. So thank you very much. My name is David Steele. Very excited to present this to you, and looking forward to creating a phenomenal relationship. And I hope this becomes something more than just an experiment, and actually a podcast you look forward to hearing on a regular basis. Till next time, talk to you soon.